I'm also excited that we're able to watch Big Show versus Triple H here for the world title. So this is the crossover. So we're going to have a big title match. Big Show came to the ring wearing the big gold belt with the blue strap, and Triple H in 2000 was probably at his physical prime. His match against Cactus Jack at the Royal Rumble later this month is still maybe my favorite Triple H match and one of my favorite Mick Foley matches of all time. But he's not too far, he being the Big Show. He's not too far removed from WCW. I think he debuted around Valentine's Day the prior year. So he's still in his first calendar year. He is the world champ, but they got him wrestling in a t-shirt. When you saw how they were using Big Show, did you regret losing him, or did you feel like the relationship had gotten to a point where it was time?
I could have kept Paul. Don't get me wrong. I like Paul. I've always liked Paul from the first day I met him to the last time I saw him a year or so ago, whatever it was. Paul is a genuinely nice person. He's a good dude to hang out with. He's got a great sense of humor. He's a kind person. He's a very cool guy. And as much as I liked Paul while he was in WCW, I knew there was nowhere to go with him. I shouldn't say that. I didn't believe in my heart that we could get Paul where Paul needed to be or where Paul thought he could be. You could not, I didn't believe, and still don't, that you can build an entire promotion around a guy like Paul White. He's too freaking big. He's too big to be a good heel. He's too big to sell and be a good baby face. He's just, in terms of laying out story and laying out matches with somebody as physically dominant as Paul White, it's incredibly difficult. You put him in there with, look at what is Triple H at this point? 250, 260?
Yeah.
Looks like Paul's wrestling me. I mean, well, not quite, but you know what I mean? He looks like a child compared to Paul. And yes, Paul's a good, or I'm using Paul in this example because we're watching him, but anybody that can get in there, yeah, you could be the greatest technical wrestler. You could be like all of Ric Flair and all of Eddie Guerrero and all of Rey Mysterio, whatever. And you put all that together and you're still not going to be able to have a believable match with a guy like Paul White. Yes, you can have a good match. You can have a Dave Meltzer good match, technically speaking. But emotionally, you're never going to connect the way you need to connect if you're going to have a guy like Paul being the head, the face of your company and your champion. It's just too hard. He has to eat too much talent to get there. And then once he's there, then what? And when Paul came to me and said, Vince offered me $1 million a year, guaranteed minimum, he gave me an opportunity. If I wanted to have beat that, I could have. I didn't. I wasn't happy to see him go, but I was happy for him. I didn't think he'd make it. Paul's a very sensitive person when you get to know him. He's a very, very gentle giant. He actually, Google gentle giant, Paul White's picture should come up because that's exactly what he is. And I thought, based on what I had heard, I had never been in WWE, that the grind and just the chemistry in the locker room, because he was coming from WCW, and just knowing how important personal relationships were to Paul at that time, I didn't think he'd make it, but he did. And I'm glad he did. He made a lot of money.
Well, it's funny because you had Paul versus Paul there, and we know that this is, believe it or not, this is the debut of the water spit at the end of Triple H's entrance, which became a pretty iconic part of his entrance. And I think this March 3rd, 2000 episode may be the first time that we get to see him do that.
Well, that's because Vince had him, because who is it in the Mr. McMahon documentary? Vince talked about a wrestling character that he loved that used to spit the water.
Yeah. Isn't that cool? I don't remember.
Because you got a memory like a steel trap. You always remember shit.
Yeah, but it's old school. It's before my time, so I don't remember exactly who it was. But
Before a lot of our times.
I do know it was one of Vince's favorite performers. Hey, I don't know if you saw, but earlier this week we saw a little bit of a promo battle, if you will, with MJF and Jeff Jarrett. Jeff has announced that he's signed his last talent contract with AEW, and it looks like he's on a collision course now with MJF. I wouldn't have had that on my bingo card for 2025. What do you think of that feud, MJF and Double J?
I don't know how the story comes together, but the match will.
Yeah, the match would be great.
The match will be awesome. Jeff is, in my experience, limited as it may be, working with producers or agents in laying out matches and then watching the result. Because you're in a typical booking situation. Okay, we're gonna have these two guys wrestle, and this guy's gonna go over. Well, okay, that's great. Now you know what's gonna happen on the TV format. But how that talent is gonna get over is like the really important part. And that's where guys who are really great agents, who really understand psychology, who can anticipate how the audience is going to react, because they can anticipate it, they can pull the right strings at the right moment to get the reaction that they know they can anticipate. That's the art of it, in my opinion, or a good part of it. Jeff is one of the very best I've ever worked with. Now, granted, I didn't work with the Pat Pattersons of the world and other very experienced producers in WWE, but I did, other than Bruce and the people that worked with me as a talent. But Jeff is I think one of the best producers I've ever worked with, because he absolutely understands psychology from the talent's point of view, because he's been around a minute in a lot of different situations. His memory card is full, so to speak. Get a lot to work with, but he also understands the television side. And oftentimes wrestlers really understand what's going on in the ring, but they don't understand, to the extent that they should, what happens outside of the ring in terms of television. Jeff's got it both. So that tells me, especially with a guy like MJF, who has an amazing ability, that we've seen it. You put those two guys together, Jeff's psychology, MJF's youth, ability, character, I'll watch. For sure. I'll even write it down on a piece of paper, stick it on the fridge to make sure I don't forget.
We're seeing the big celebration now. Triple H has just won the world title for the second time with a little help from his friends in DX. And down come the green and black balloons and the confetti. And we got a new world champion, Triple H, who's now running the show. It's the Helmsley McMahon regime, or the McMahon Helmsley, whatever. Nice little
Doesn't it feel like Nitro 1997 with the confetti and the colors and the gang warfare? I mean, geez, come on. Is it just me? Or